Welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. After a quite sensational night of football, once again, it feels we're always talking after a sensational day or night of Premier League football. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined as always by Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. Special segment at the start of the show because we will have a busy Christmas period. We're going to take a look at the Premier League title odds and we're going to bring Mark and Adrian in. Matchbook Betting Exchange, that's got a bit bigger. That price on City, 2.1 currently. Arsenal are 3.95. Liverpool 4.9, and Aston Villa, producer Ryan has decided to include them in this shortlist, 34.0. Mark, Villa, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, who's winning the league this year?
I mean, I know people want to believe Man City are in a downward spiral, and that's potentially true. They were shocking at Villa in midweek, and they have failed to win 6 of the last 9 in the Premier League. We've talked about their lack of clean sheets as well. We've talked about their potential lack of squad depth coming back to haunt them at some point. We've seen how they've struggled without Rodri, but what happens if Haaland gets injured? Rodri's banned or suspended, Stones as well. So the lack of sort of attacking options behind City's first 11 would be a concern. But, you know, if they do keep all players fit, City still are the best 11 in world football. But I think Liverpool's squad is probably better than Man City. Now, obviously, they've been hit with Matip's injury on Wednesday night, which is a blow. But in terms of the actual title race, the title odds, now might be the time to back City, believe it or not, because they are that price. You look at their next 5 fixtures, they are playing Luton this weekend, then Palace, Brentford, Everton and Sheffield United. So it'd be hard to assume City will lengthen in price from here. So if you are keen on City and you still think this might be a bit of a blip, and we'll get to them in a bit more detail when we talk about their match against Luton later on in the show, then perhaps now is the time to back City. But in terms of Arsenal or Liverpool, sorry to disappoint you two guys, but I would rather back Liverpool at that price than Arsenal. That's partly due to the belief, in my opinion, that Liverpool will get better and better. And I think Arsenal aren't a million miles off, probably top tier or top level. You know, we knew it was going to be a transitional start to the season for Liverpool, featuring a brand new midfield. It was always going to take them time. So to be only 2 points off the top, having already been to Man City, been to Spurs, been to Newcastle, Brighton and Chelsea, that's impressive. They've only really got to go to United, Arsenal and Villa in terms of tough away days. Still, you'd expect them to win at least 85% of their Anfield matches. So they're almost a full point bigger than Arsenal, who, you know, there's no surprise factor around Arsenal. The market made them second favourites pre-season anyhow. The handicap was set at sort of 9-10 points off City. They're in a great position, of course they are, but compared to what Liverpool have got coming up, Arsenal still have to go to Anfield, Villa, City, Spurs and Brighton. And actually, if you look at the schedule so far, 2/3 of Arsenal's games have come against the current bottom half, whereas Liverpool's is much closer to a 50-50 split in that regard. So I know and completely agree with the reservations that you boys will have about Liverpool defensively, their away form too. But I just think there's a lot more to come from Liverpool in the second half of the season. And I think squad in terms of squad depth, I think they are probably the strongest of the three. So yeah, I thought 4.9 was quite big, and that would be the one to interest me, as well as City, not Arsenal, unfortunately.
Adrian Clarke, take it away on maybe Liverpool to start with, because you watched them live. We spoke about this in podcast, but you did watch them live at home to Fulham a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed. I think that I've watched them live a few times, and they've got so much talent. They've got so much firepower, real quality in possession, but without the ball, it's not the Liverpool that won the title. It is miles off of that. The pressing, it's not good, really. Not by their not by Klopp's standards. The midfield is so attack-minded that they're absolutely get-at-able. And obviously, I think with the fullbacks, especially with Trent Alexander-Arnold coming in field all the time, they do have vulnerabilities. And obviously, Alisson's out at the minute as well, which isn't ideal. But look, they are a quality side. They deserve to be in the mix. But I don't know if I can rely on Liverpool to be robust enough on the road from here on in. I think, I think at home we know how good they are. We know they'll win most of their games, but away from home, when put under a bit of pressure, I think their defence will make mistakes and maybe be exposed by a very attack-minded midfield. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I think the odds are about right. I think City should still be favourites. I think Arsenal are the second best team, and I think Liverpool are the third best team. So, but yeah, I get Mark's angle from the odd side, but I think Arsenal are very solid. It didn't look so solid at Luton the other night though, but more solid than they were last season. I personally, I wouldn't back Arsenal right now. I'd wait and see how they fare at Villa Park, how they fare at home to Brighton, bogey team, and how they fare away to Liverpool. These are matches all before Christmas. If Arsenal have come through those matches impressively, there'll be a shorter price, but I think the likelihood of Arsenal winning the league will rise if they can see off those three fixtures properly.
Yeah, look, to be honest, it's actually a really good weekend of football this weekend and right up throughout the Christmas period. So looking forward to previewing that action before Christmas. Before we get started, if you are watching the YouTube stream, do hit that like button, get involved, and subscribe completely for free. And we really appreciate all the kind comments via social and YouTube. And if you're listening on the podcast, a 5-star review on whatever your preferred podcast platform is much appreciated. Crystal Palace versus Liverpool, Villa versus Arsenal, Luton versus Manchester City, and Spurs versus Newcastle are the 4 marquee games this week. And we start at Selhurst Park, Palace versus Liverpool. Take a look at the betting that we currently have on matchbook.com. You can back Palace at 6.2 here, Liverpool 158, the draw 4.7. We have both teams to score yes favored in that market at 1.8. The Asian handicap line sees Palace get a 1-goal head start at 2.06, and the total here is over 2.5. 168 is the over. Adrian Clarke, take it away on this. Palace disappointing midweek, Liverpool disappointing at times in the middle patch of that game against Sheffield United, but look, that could have been a potential banana skin with Chris Wilder. So where are you thinking for a bet looking into this?
Yeah, game? they won the game, so it wasn't all bad for Liverpool by any stretch, was it? Obviously they're worthy favourites. I do feel they're a little bit short. I still feel that Palace away is a very awkward fixture, one of the more awkward ones outside of facing one of the big boys. So yeah, that price isn't particularly attractive. I get it that Palace aren't in great form. They've lost a few at home of late, of course, but they create chances against Bournemouth, and I just think they've got the players to and maybe the style to cause Liverpool problems at times. Clearly, Liverpool will dominate the game; they'll create loads of chances, but I think in Elise and in Jordan Ayew in those wide positions, they've got real quality and power and pace, and I do. That Fulham game, I mean, Fulham just tormented Liverpool down the flanks, particularly down their left, down Liverpool's right. And I think that Ayew down that side can have a field day, if I'm honest. So I think Palace have a chance here to score goals, at least a goal. And look, Liverpool away from home, yet to keep a clean sheet. Both teams to score has landed in every single away game. Liverpool have scored in every match, full stop, this season. So yeah, I'm drawn to both teams to score. I'd rather not side with either team. Liverpool clearly worthy favourites, but I don't see this as a shoo-in by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, the fact that Liverpool every away game has seen both teams score is attractive. Obviously, Palace couldn't score against Bournemouth, which you might think is a worry, but as I said, I think their wingers have the tools to open up Liverpool on occasion. And I think that Hodgson will get them fired up for this because he's a little bit on the ropes, isn't he? There's a lot of talk of Steve Cooper maybe losing his job at Forest and then instantly replacing Hodgson. Well, yeah, he won't like that, will he? I would have thought he'll certainly want to put on a show after that disappointing defeat against Bournemouth. He'll demand a high level of work ethic. Now, I know Tyrick Mitchell came off injured in that game. They've got a few issues, Palace, but yeah, that it's never easy at Selhurst Park, and yeah, I just think that Palace can be competitive in the game. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. It's going to be an awkward game for Liverpool. I expect them to win, but I don't think that's a guarantee by any stretch.
Okay, 179, both teams to score. Mark, I presume you're going to pick up on a lot of what Adrian said, the positivity around Crystal Palace here.
Very much so. Agree with everything Adrian says, really. Logic would suggest Liverpool go to Selhurst Park and win this game comfortably, and that's reflected in the price. And sometimes you need to be a bit bold in your approach because the prices allow it to be. We're betting on probabilities basically here, and I just think Liverpool are a little bit too short, really. Traditionally, cliche-wise, Selhurst Park is a banana skin ground for some of the big teams, but that probably hasn't been the case too often this season. The mood has turned a little sour over the last fortnight. Roy Hodgson's quotes after that Bournemouth defeat were quite pointed, I think, at the supporters, and there was a reported issue of him walking off, and something was thrown in his direction as well. So he's unhappy. The fans are unhappy. A home game against Liverpool probably isn't the ideal scenario to kind of get back into winning ways, but perhaps it suits Palace more than most clubs, really, because they can get that crowd behind them and hopefully put on a decent competitive show here. So I'm happy to back them with a 1.25 goal start on the Asian handicap. Again, I'm just literally playing the numbers and probabilities here because I know Liverpool are the obvious winners, but the price is too short. And in terms of this bet, they need to win by 2 or more goals at Selhurst Park for us not to make money. That's occurred only 4 times since the start of last season at Selhurst Park. Only 4 visiting teams have departed with a 2-goal or better win in a 26-game sample. Liverpool themselves have won by a 2-goal margin or better just 6 times in 27 away days going back to the beginning of last season. So, I think we will see a stubborn Palace side, but don't allow their opposition to run them over. And I think Liverpool, despite their obvious attacking firepower, don't always dispatch teams comfortably on their travels. And we saw that in midweek against Sheffield United. It wasn't the sort of breezy match that many might have anticipated. Yes, they dominated possession, territory, and opportunities, but it wasn't a runaway victory. And it's largely down to the fact that they don't often keep clean sheets on the road. Just 6 going back to the start of last season. They've only actually won 9 of those matches overall. So, with that clean sheet record, that's a concern. Alisson missing again. I know Kelleher was much improved between the sticks in midweek, but last week there was a bit of uncertainty between him and the defence. And yeah, I just think if Adrian's right and Palace do get a goal here, then Liverpool are going to need to score 3 to see this bet lose, which is quite a feat really to go to Palace and score that many goals. Everton did recently, of course, but that's a rarity. And I just think Palace have the ability to frustrate, but also have the outlet, as Adrian's already outlined, as well as Odsonne Edouard, who's having a fantastic goal-heavy season himself. So, in all honesty, my numbers were I had Liverpool a lot bigger than 158 as they are now, and that price has shifted a reasonable amount in the last 48 hours too. So, just kind of happy to be on the Palace side of things, even without Eze and Doucouré, 2 big blows for Palace. It just feels like this is more suitable for them to be competitive and put on a decent show compared to games, say, when they hosted Fulham and Everton and Forest, where they're probably expected to make the running for the most part. So, I think Palace plus 1.25, but I also do like Adrian's selection too. So
yeah, I should have said obviously until last night, both teams to score had landed in every Liverpool away game. That's when
Sheffield United don't count, do they? So
yeah, they don't count, do they? No, but no, Mark's absolutely right. Liverpool haven't blown anyone away on the road yet. So, and I wouldn't see them tearing Palace apart by any stretch.
Sheffield United booking Premier League trends this season. Crystal Palace plus 1.25 goal is the podcast selection, going to lock in Mark O'Hare's pick there. So 1-0 Mark on this podcast. There may or may not be agreement for the second game. Saturday, 5:30 under the lights in Villa Park. Aston Villa versus Arsenal. Aston Villa 3.6. Arsenal 2.18 favourites. The draw is 3.7. Both teams to score, yes, 168. The Asian handicap line, Villa will get a 1/4 goal head start at 2.1. And the goal line here is 2.5, shaded towards the over at 1.8. So, Mark, if for looking at those match prices initially before maybe a goals angle, you look at Arsenal, they're probably too short considering the Villa Park record under Unai Emery has been absolutely sensational, especially last night as well.
Yeah, it has been brilliant, but I think it's quite interesting. The prices between Arsenal and Manchester City to go to Villa Park in the last week. Man City were short of a 1.8 at kickoff against Aston Villa. Arsenal, 2.18 at the minute before the weekend. Yet the two teams were or are similarly priced for their away trip at Luton in the same week too. So perhaps there might actually be a bit of room for an opportunity with Arsenal in some way or form here, based on the prices between those two, exact games between the two teams this week. But in terms of Villa, yeah, they were absolutely outstanding against Man City. Probably the best performance I've seen from any side against a Pep Guardiola-led Man City since he's arrived in English football. And arguably their best really since putting 7 past Liverpool. But this was probably more impressive in all honesty, because they were absolutely astonishing. 21 shots, the most ever that Pep's conceded in a top 5 league game. But then they've only managed 2, and both came in that same move for Haaland in the 11th minute, when it did make great saves from Martinez. But apart from that, City didn't have a shot in the game. Just astonishing. Just one-way traffic throughout. And it wasn't just the chances and the shots that Villa created. It was the fact they dominated every collision, the duels, picked up the loose balls. They were feisty, they were tireless, they were just relentless. And I think the final score didn't really do them justice, because they had good opportunities elsewhere. It just so happens the goal came from a deflected strike. But I thought they were excellent value for the win. So if Arsenal were ever in any doubt about how difficult this game could be, I think that was a massive reminder. You've talked about the club record home winning streak. Villa have now scored in all 20 home league games under Emery, averaging 2.5 goals. They've won 16 of those 20, but they have only recorded 7 clean sheets at Villa Park under Emery. 13 of those matches have seen BTTS. So, you look at their record this season. Before City, they'd scored 3 goals or more in every home league game, but they'd also conceded in all but one of those matches too. So, I think we're right to assume and expect goals. Arsenal did come here and win 4-2 last season. They dominated that fixture. It's a different Villa side this time around, obviously, but it's been a bit of a theme, Villa against the big boys. They beat Spurs 2-1 here. They beat Brighton 6-1 here, beat them 2-1 last season, beat Newcastle 3-0 at home, did lose 3-1 to Liverpool, beat Man United 3-1 under Emery. So all those matches, bar Wednesday night, have gone over, and all bar 2 have seen both teams scoring. So that's my angle here, is to back over 2.5 goals at 1.8. We've talked about it a few times on the show this season, but the uplift in Premier League goals per game outputs have meant that the prices on goal-heavy games have kind of crashed, really. So to be able to get 1.8 on that particular selection does appeal to me. I'm sure Adrian will kind of cover Arsenal better than I can, but looking at that game against Luton, they did deserve to win it on balance of play, but they did look uncomfortable at times. Set-piece defending was pretty dreadful, to be kind, and David Raya was at fault too. So I'd be surprised if Arsenal did keep Villa out, even though they have got a good away record, the best in the league since the start of last season, and they've got a great clean sheet record as well away from home. And but I just do expect Villa to score. Obviously, expect Arsenal to do so too, and then you're just looking for a third goal to take you over the line. In terms of Arsenal, though, I have been impressed recently. The victory against Lens and the performance was incredibly impressive, and to do the same to Wolves in the first 45 minutes. And then for all those negatives about conceding 3 goals in the manner they did only face 6 shots against Luton. It's pretty rare to concede 3 goals from just 6 shots, especially 2 low quality opportunities from set piece situations. I thought they dominated for the most part and created plenty, and should have, in theory, won by a couple of goals, but that's just not the way football works, is it? So I think over 2.5 goals at 4 to 5, 1.8 is the way to play this.
Okay, over 2.5, 1.8. Yeah, Adrian, on Arsenal, so they've had 5 winners or equalisers in the Premier League this season after the 84th minute. And look, we saw this in the Alex Ferguson United days, but also recently Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool when they won the title. Just those late goals become a habit, but also they're a sign that you're knocking on the door, you're putting enough pressure that it's not just luck, is it?
No, it's definitely not luck. No, it's an unrelenting Arsenal side, full of spirit and character, and they go again and they go again. It was, yeah, but this is a pattern. This isn't just one game. They consistently do it. So I love the team. I really do. I just think it's full of good blokes, that get on very well with each other, that are united as a team. So and that will hold them in good stead between now and the end of the season. It's a tough game. This is clearly a very, very challenging fixture. One of the statistically, it's the toughest one out there, isn't it? With those, was it 14 straight home wins for Aston Villa? So it's not going to be easy. They're going to have to play very well to get a positive result. Last year's game was really interesting. Villa tore into Arsenal early on and absolutely dominated, got themselves in front, and it required quite a special comeback actually from Arsenal to go and win that game 4-2, and I expect Villa to tear at Arsenal yet again. That's what they did against City, and I don't think there'll be any fear factor at all from Emery's team. They will just go at Arsenal, which lends itself to a game that will be full of goals. I'm completely with Mark. I have to sit on the fence in terms of the result, because I could see all three scenarios playing out. I could argue for all of them really, but the one angle that really stands out is overs, and it's because the line is set at 2.5, and I think that it's unusual for us to be able to back that this season. And this feels like an open game where Villa come at Arsenal, and Arsenal, we know that they will create chances. I mean, Arsenal, by the way, have had 50 more touches inside the opposition box than any other team this season. They're very good at being incisive, pushing teams back and pinning them in with sustained periods of pressure, and they're capable of doing that here. We know that Arsenal's away record is terrific. I thought the performance was pretty good against Luton. Actually, you talk about those 6 shots that Mark referenced. Luton had 7 touches inside Arsenal's box in the game. They scored 3 goals. There's 7 touches inside the box. Gabriel Jesus had 14. So it wasn't as if Arsenal were really under that much pressure. It was individual mistakes, wasn't it, for the goals, for all of the goals, really. And if there are individual mistakes here, Villa will punish Arsenal. There's absolutely no doubt about that. They're playing absolutely superbly. Villa have had the 3rd most shots in the box in this season so far. Arsenal are 4th, only 1 shot behind. But they're both teams that get the ball into the box and create opportunities. All of the forwards on both sides are in good nick. I'm just thinking about the game stylistically. I can obviously see Villa creating chances because of their home form. They've just got 20-odd shots against City. Goodness me. But I also think Arsenal are bad opponents for them, because Arsenal raid down the sides through Saka, Martinelli, the fullbacks. Ødegaard drifts out wide. They love those little 1-2s and combinations on the flanks. And Villa's strength is down the middle with that narrow formation where McGinn and Tielemans come into central midfield to really overload it. That's where they'll have joy. But Arsenal, when they flick the ball out wide, they can create a lot of 1v1s and plenty of 2v1s. And I do think that Konsa at right back is not a natural there, and that Luca Digne is far better going forward than he is at the back. So I think Arsenal's strength in the game is out wide. But yeah, when all is said and done, you put the analysis to one side, I agree with Mark's bet. I'm going to go with over 2.5 goals. But I'm confident it'll be exciting.
Yeah, you were making a good case for Arsenal, but you're sort of playing it safe.
Yeah, I have to stop short, because I agree that the price is a little bit skinny on Arsenal, considering Villa's amazing home record. I'm not fearful of the game from Arsenal's point of view, but I'm not bold enough to put my money on it.
Yeah, no, overs is a good play, especially you can cover both attacks to perform well. Over 2.5 goals, 1.8, the podcast selection. We'll go to Luton versus Manchester City, which I can exclusively reveal was a late add-on to the running order, given how well that Luton played against Arsenal. Some atmosphere in Kenilworth Road, expecting the same Sunday. Luton 20.0, Manchester City 1.18. The draw is 9.6. Both teams to score. No is favored in that market. You heard that correctly. No one is 164. Yes, it's 2.16. The Asian handicap line sees Luton get 2.25 goal head start at 184. We will get to that shortly, and the goal line is 3.5, but under 3.5 is 1.8. So, Adrian, straight back to you. What did you make of Man City? We mentioned the goal stats, but yeah, that's 0.00 expected goals after the 11th minute against Aston Villa it's just shocking. If you said that before the game, you just wouldn't have believed it.
No, it was dreadful, absolutely awful. Yeah, the only 2 shots they had came in the same move. I mean, they were 2 good shots, but 2 excellent saves. But to have nothing after the 11th minute is embarrassing, isn't it, for City? And it is alarming as well, I would suggest. But, and this is the but, it doesn't make one off night doesn't make them a poor side. And Having watched that Luton game, Arsenal carving out over 20 odd shots, keeping Luton out of their box pretty much, aside from those set pieces, just the 7 touches inside the danger zone from Luton against Arsenal. I do think that City are likely to bounce back. It won't be easy. It won't, because Luton will fight and scrap, and they'll make it as difficult as they can for any team that goes there. And you can imagine how pumped they'll be to turn over the champions, and how much confidence they would have taken from the Arsenal game. So this is a really awkward game for Manchester City. But when all is said and done, City are the best team in the world, and Luton are likely to get relegated at the end of the season. So I have to back City. But obviously they're way too short at the price. So I'm gonna pair it with under 3.5 goals, which takes it to a far more palatable 2.28. And for me, if they do win the game, it will be a tight one. I don't see a repeat of the 4-3. I don't see it being excessively wild. Obviously, City aren't at their very best going forward at the moment. Well, certainly weren't the other night. And Luton are just hard. They're a tough nut to crack. They are. Looking at City over the course of last season and this season, so since the start of last season, 7 of 27 away games have gone over 3.5. So the vast majority, 20 of 27, have gone under 3.5 goals. So the odds are stacked in our favour. It's not that often that they're involved in wild away games. They're quite professional. They get the job done. Lots of low-scoring victories. And that is how I see this one playing out. For Luton as well, by the way, pre-Arsenal, every home game had ended in under 3.5. And there was a crazy stat. I mean, Luton hadn't scored in the first hour of matches until the Arsenal game, which at home, which is just bonkers, really. So, I think this one will revert more to the type. It'll be a low-scoring affair, but City absolutely should prevail against the Hatters. And the price is nice.
Okay, City and under 3.5 goals, 2.28 for Adrian. Mark, he felt a pro City angle just had to be the play there in this game, but you don't.
Not necessarily. I just think it's a very high handicap for a Premier League match. Arsenal were 2-goal favourites at Kenilworth Road in midweek, but the handicap is shifted to 2.25 for the visit of Man City. We've talked about how they're at a low ebb at the minute. Yes, they get Rodri back, but they've still been conceding opportunities, and they have been kind of hit with a few sucker punches, it must be said, recently. Yes, they thoroughly deserve to lose to Aston Villa, but to concede 3 goals at Spurs at the last weekend from relatively low quality chances was a bitter blow. Leipzig were very, very clinical against them. Chelsea did score 4, but that was probably a little bit extreme. You go back to the Liverpool game, they were much the better team for the most part, and so I don't think they're a complete crisis mode, but they are looking a little bit shaky at the minutes. And Luton do get the extra rest day coming into this, which could be massively significant because they did empty the tank against Arsenal, received plenty of plaudits for application, the work rate, the effort they put in, and they did cause Arsenal a few headaches. Rob Edwards was understandably quite disappointed with the result and the manner of it, but he can be pleased with the performance because it was night and day from what we saw against Brentford last weekend. But I just think I think they're capable of keeping us relatively competitive. By that I mean City still need to win this match by 3 goals for us not to make money, which is still a hefty total for an away team in the Premier League match, regardless of who it is against. And I think Luton are starting to perhaps get a bit more respect on their name from the start of the season when they were written off as cannon fodder, and some were saying they'd be the worst team to ever play in the Premier League, which was so disrespectful. Anyone who saw them win promotion saw the togetherness, the motivation, the work rate, the organisation of this team. They're always going to be up against it because of the lack of budget. But you compared Luton's preparations for this season with Sheffield United, and it's quite clear to those who saw these two teams coming up that Sheffield United were going to be in a lot of trouble, and Luton had the potential to finish above them, and that's certainly been the case so far. So, long story short, I think Luton can stay within 2 goals of City, and therefore I would make money out of my selection of Luton plus 2.25. City have won by 3 goals or more twice this season, Burnley on the opening day and the derby at Man United. but it has only occurred 6 times on their travels since the start of last season. It's not a regular occurrence for City to blast teams away by 3 goals or more away from home. So we've seen Luton be very competitive against Liverpool and Arsenal. Spurs too. Yes, they were second best in all 3 of those fixtures, but the outcomes have been relatively positive for those backing this Luton handicap start. So I'm happy to have a little interest on it again this weekend.
Just a quick one, Daniel. On City, I did a piece ahead of the Villa game, obviously about with and without Rodri and stuff like that. We know that they've got a really poor record. But the other angle I made in the piece that I wrote was about if you can stay in the game against Manchester City, you've got a chance. Obviously, that bore fruit with Villa. But their record in the final half an hour of games this season is pretty woeful, Manchester City. 2 seasons ago, they ended games unbelievably. I think they overpowered everybody, trampled all over them in the final part of the game. Last season, that didn't happen. They actually had a -2 goal difference in the last 15 minutes of games last season, City. And this time around, they've conceded more goals in the last half hour of games, City, than in the first hour of matches. It's not been good for them in the latter stages. So yeah, from Luton's point of view, anyone that plays City, stay in it, and you might get some joy later on. I just thought I'd say I know that we've made our selections, but it's just something for the viewers and the listeners to consider. Maybe avoiding the sort of City second half angles. And maybe going against them in that period might prove profitable.
Yeah, absolutely one to keep an eye on. If you stay in the game against Man City, the stats show that as well. We will lock in Luton plus 2.25 goal. I do feel it's a big handicap, but proceed with caution when taking on Manchester City. Trust us on that. We will move to, this is probably my favorite game. I know the Villa Arsenal game is huge, but this could be great. Tottenham versus Newcastle, and there's going to be a great argument on the podcast here shortly. Spurs 2.4, Newcastle 2.9 underdogs. The draw is 4.0. Both teams score yes at the usual 1.51. The Asian handicap line sees Newcastle get a quarter goal head start, and the goal line is 3.5, but that's 164 for the under. So yeah, Mark, take it away here. I mentioned there's going to be a disagreement on the podcast, so you make the argument here for Newcastle.
It might not be a great argument because mine's pretty weak in terms of my.
I'll be building. I'll trying to build this up with the audience here, Mark. Come on.
Yeah, it's kind of like the injured derby, isn't it? The injured Classico between these 2 teams. The amount of players missing. I think perhaps Sarr is probably the only player due back on either side of the camp. He would be a big boost for Spurs, but I think it's still doubtful at this stage. So basically, when I did my prep for this on Wednesday, the market's moved a slight bit in Spurs' favours, in Newcastle's favour since. But when I did my prep, basically the market was saying that these 2 teams were rated about equal. And that did surprise me a little bit because all of my numbers determine Newcastle as the stronger team so far this season, which might surprise a few people. But a lot of that is probably built up by their positive figures at St James's Park, where they've been absolutely rampant away from home. We know they've won just once in 6, and that was at Sheffield United. But the underlying numbers do paint a different picture, even when playing away. And it just shows to me sometimes that, I can just be led by price, really. And I think, both teams play on Thursday night. I have opposed Newcastle at Everton on this show on Monday, but I'm kind of happy to back them with a quarter goal start at Spurs. 2 away days in quick succession. I try to avoid on most occasions. And Newcastle obviously have that game against Milan next midweek, which is enormous for them, and it's quite a hectic period. But I have been relatively impressed by the 11 that they've been fielding week in, week out, because of the performances have been pretty strong. And kind of getting back to my original point, in terms of expected points, Newcastle are a top 4 team this season, and Tottenham are just above mid-table, which again is probably quite surprising. The Toon have actually won the XG battle in 11 of their 14 Premier League games. And so, they're a very similar price to when Aston Villa came here and won not so long ago. And sure, Tottenham were the better team that day and probably deserved something out of that match, but they didn't get it. So I just thought, perhaps Newcastle might be worth a chance here with a quarter goal start, knowing that we only lose money, or we don't make money unless Tottenham win this match. So their only defeat in 10, Newcastle came against Bournemouth immediately after a Champions League game week. Spurs have actually failed to win 5 of the last 9. 6 out of 8 wins in the Premier League this season have come against the bottom 8 as well. Tough betting heat, fascinating game. I do expect goals, but the market's already over that. Just the underlying numbers and what my model is saying is Newcastle should be a little bit shorter. And I'm wondering whether the market is starting to move that way. Because as I say, when I did my prep on Wednesday afternoon, Spurs are about 2.3. They're 2.42 now, looking at Matchbook Live. So, the more it swings that way, the more I'm going to get involved for Spurs. So at the minute, these two teams play on Thursday night. I just wouldn't have a strong view until perhaps after this match and probably closer to Sunday, to be all honesty. But happy to leave it alone and let Adrian have a stronger pick than I have.
Yeah, well, the pressure's on you, Adrian.
Well, I don't know how strong, but no, because it's a tough game. It's two good teams going at it, but Tottenham at home have been by and large very good this season under Postecoglou. We know about the feel good factor that's sort of radiating around that part of North London. Clearly, I think wait until we know the outcome of Spurs v West Ham, of Everton versus Newcastle, which is happening tonight as we record. But in the here and now, I like 2.42 on the home win, because Newcastle's away form is not anything remotely special. They've won 1 of 6, as Mark said. Sheffield United away, it was a good win. They've lost 3 of their 6 away games. In Europe, quite poor away from home against Dortmund, against Milan, in my opinion. But they were good against PSV, clearly. But again, in that game, they conceded a lot of chances, rode their luck massively. And look, this Tottenham team, you know what they're about. They're going to create plenty. They're going to go for it. They're going to put bodies into the box and really ask questions of the opposition. And I think it's a really tough away game for anybody. And with Newcastle's busy schedule, the Milan game coming up, a young side that are overworked at the moment. I think that much is clear. Obviously, 12 players out. Fatigue factor might be tough. Tottenham are one of the fittest sides in the league. We know that. I think this is going to be a high-tempo game, and I just wonder whether it might be a game too far for Newcastle. That's where I'm coming from with it, especially with that Champions League game on the horizon. They've had to change their keeper. I think the Nick Pope is a very reliable number one. Dubravka's obviously decent, but a little bit rusty. Is that going to unsettle that rapport with the back four? So, obviously Romero will be available for this game, and probably Papsar. And I think they make a difference. Lo Celso, I thought, has done really well in the last couple of games as sort of your Maddison stand-in, someone that's capable of keeping the ball and creating and scoring, as we saw in the last couple of games. So, all in all, I see more reasons to favour Spurs here. And, 2.42. Yes, this is quite nice.
Okay, we're going to lock that in. Tottenham 242, currently recording, as the guys said before, the matches tonight. If you want a preview of tonight's games, check out our social channels, the previous podcast, Matchbook Insights, or wherever you watch or listen to your podcast. We appreciate all the kind comments coming through on YouTube. Do keep them coming in. Adrian, speaking of kind comments, I'm going to go to EFL. The amount of people that came up to me going, love that Plymouth case from Adrian. I did either draw no bet or I did Plymouth to win. And obviously they get the 97th minute winner. But besides that, people were saying they were too big a price. Adrian made the case. So 10 out of 10 for that, sir, on Saturday.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. You don't always get them right. But that was price based. I've sort of, a bit of Mark is rubbing off on me. looking at value in the market. I just didn't get it. And they went and won the game. So that was good. My first pick here, actually, in the EFL is a little bit similar. It's price based because it's Ipswich Town. They travel to Middlesbrough in the Championship, and they're underdogs. I think they're underdogs. They're a good price. You can get them at over 3 to win the game. Ipswich Town, which is a big surprise to me, because Ipswich Town, prior to their recent defeat at West Bromwich Albion, hadn't lost away from home in pretty much a year. Unbelievable consistency on the road. We know at home they're terrific as well. Lots of goals in the Ipswich team. They score for fun. A good friend of mine, Sam Parkin, has seen them a couple of times in the flesh, and he said to me, Clarke said, this Ipswich team are special. I think they're unbelievable. The cohesion between the players, the tactical side of it, the goal threats. He was blown away really by what he's seen of them. So I don't think they should be underdogs coming into very many matches this season, not least one against the Middlesbrough team that have a lot of injuries, particularly at the back at the moment. A lot of good players, good defenders are missing. They're very much stretched. And I think they're more than capable of going to the Riverside and winning the game. Borough have beaten Leicester and Southampton at home. It must be said, got a good home record, but at the same time, they tripped up, I think, against Millwall, Stoke, QPR as well. So, yeah, I like Ipswich here. And obviously, if you go with the minus a quarter, if it's a draw, you get half your stake back. So, it cushions the blow a little bit. But yeah, I think in a match that I would expect to be quite entertaining, because Borough, because they're so short of defenders, attack will be the best form of defence for them. I think I think gaps might open up for Ipswich to go and score goals. They've got 5 wins on the road already this season. Ipswich Town, I think they can get another one. I really do. Middlesbrough are decent, but the league table will tell you that they're not in the same league as Ipswich Town this season. So I'm going to go with them. Home or away, they're always a threat. 2.44.
Yeah, a bit of agreement in the comments for Adrian's first selection. The second selection is probably the exact opposite, Adrian, in terms of teams playing well at the moment. So both teams to score now. I nearly know the case already. Like, to be fair, it's an amazing price considering all that, isn't it? Like,
well, that's what caught the eye. Stoke versus Sheffield Wednesday. Forget just those two names. You know that I'm going to go low. It has to be low, right?
Both teams to score now.
I love both teams to score no angle. I know it's not a Mark favourite because he's watching matches through his hand. He wants to cheer on the goals, which I totally get. But yeah, look, these two teams aren't high scoring. 12 of 19 for both teams have seen both teams to score no land this season. So that's a 63% win rate for this particular bet for both clubs. Sheffield Wednesday have had 11 blanks in those 19 games. Stoke have had 9 blanks. So that they are the top 2 in terms of failing to score in matches this season. The Bet365 Stadium is not exactly full of goals this season. I think the average is 2.22, which is very much among the lowest. Sheffield Wednesday are improving under the new manager, Danny Roll. Great win against Blackburn. Good draw against Leicester. But away from home, haven't really done anything all season. 1 draw and the rest were defeats. So they won't go into this game full of that much belief. I think it will be solidity first. Can we try and nick a goal and protect it? So yeah, just the 1 point from all of their away games. So yeah, look, last season these two sides met twice. There was a grand total of 1 goal in those 2 matches, and 4 of their last 5 meetings, Stoke and Sheffield Wednesday, which probably come as a surprise to no one, have seen both teams to score no land. So yeah, 1.9. I can definitely get behind that.
Yeah, 2 confident selections in the EFL Championship. Mark O'Haire, Adrian mentioned goals angles. I don't know if you saw your European selection coming up. This is as goal angles as it gets, cheering on a team to score over 1.5 goals, so 2 goals or more. So take it away.
Yeah, we'll go to the Zweite Bundesliga on Friday evening. A great place to be on Friday nights. The 5:30 kickoffs always produce plenty of goals, cards, chaos, everything you want really from a football match. The German second tier tends to deliver in spades. And I'm looking at Hanover's match against Karlsruhe. Hanover have been a little bit erratic of late. They've fallen 5 points adrift of the top 3. But I think they've got a really good opportunity here to kind of close that gap, at least temporarily, because Karlsruhe are a point off the bottom 3 and they've only won 4 times all season. But the focus for me here is on goals, just because Hanover can be a little bit inconsistent in terms of the actual output, in terms of results, but they've been very consistent in what they do in terms of scoring goals, especially at home, where they've scored at least twice in 6 of 7. The only time they failed to do that was when they hosted third-placed Hamburg. If you include away days, Hanover have covered this line in 10 of 15 Zwei Bundesliga matches this season, averaging 1.87 goals, and the XG output is very strong too. Karlsruhe, just 2 clean sheets all season, giving up 1.73 goals per game. But when playing away, they've conceded over 1.5 goals in 5 of 7, allowing 1.77 expected goals per game on average. They've actually conceded twice or more in 7 of 8 against the top 10 across all venues, and they've conceded at least twice in 9 of 15 overall, including 4 of the last 5. So they've been dropping down the division slowly. Hanover have as well, but there is a quality gap between the two teams, and I don't think that's been accounted for in the prices. So Hanover over 1.5 goals at 1.91.
Okay, let's move to long shots, which you'll see the profit will be over £130, and it's going to be on the bottom of your screen there now, our long shots record this season. Adrian, you're a bit unlucky, I thought, with that Bournemouth and both teams to score shout. To be fair, I think you had the right.
I was wishing a Palace goal in injury time, that is for sure.
yeah. So take it away. It's similar angle now today, sorry, this weekend.
Yeah, I saw the Bournemouth win coming, but I sort of wish I'd gone over 1.5. I don't know whether that would have met the long shot threshold or not, but that's what I should have done on reflection. But it wasn't far away, and my thinking is similar here actually. It's Brighton. I'm not sure about Brighton at the moment. Obviously, they sort of limped to a win against Brentford, who'd lost Brian Mbeumo very early on in the game. Lot of injuries. If you look at the team sheet for Brighton in that game against Brentford, I know that they rotate heavily anyway, but a lot of good players are out at the moment. They're certainly not at their strongest, and they have drawn a few at home this season. They've drawn a couple of times, one apiece. I think there's been a 2-2 in there as well. And I think Burnley are on the precipice of turning defeats into draws and wins. Certainly draws. I'm not going to go too far with the wins because they have lost 12 of 15, Burnley. But I see an incremental improvement in them. They showed a lot of promise at Wolves, I thought, in defeat. Obviously, myself and Mark both backed against them, and it just about came in, that best bet. But they did have more shots than Wolves and were quite unlucky to lose the game. And I feel like he's finding his best 11 now, Vincent Kompany, and that some of these raw, inexperienced players are getting to grips with Premier League football. So I see Burnley getting there. Look, both teams to score has landed in every game, hasn't it, for Brighton this season? Almost every game since Roberto De Zerbi took over as manager. So it'd be remiss of me not to go with that. But when you pair it with the draw, giving Burnley a shot at it, it takes it to 6.0, which is a good price. The 1-1, by the way, which I was tempted by, is 10.0. But I just erred on the side of caution for the 2-2er. Just in case things get a little bit exciting. I do worry that Brighton are a bad fit for Burnley because of their pressing style. But what I will say is that Burnley are better than most teams at playing through the press. And they might only need to do it 2 or 3 times to get themselves right at the heart of that weakened back four and to potentially score goals. So, for me, a draw and both teams to score in this game, which is effectively just a slight, is a little bit of praise for Burnley and a bit of negativity around Brighton.
Okay, keep an eye on those markets, draw on both teams to score, and of course the correct score mentioned by Adrian. Mark, Serie A for your best long shot this week.
Frosinone. They're back in Serie A after a couple of seasons away. They've made a reasonable impression on their return. They are 8 points clear of the drop and 6 points off Napoli and Roma in the top 6. So they're kind of safely ensconced in mid-table. Been heavily reliant on their home form to keep them there. 5 wins from 7 as hosts. The 2 matches they failed to win came against Fiorentina and Napoli, both in the top 6. Kind of understandable, really. Now, what's interesting is all 7 of them home matches have seen both teams scoring. So 5 of their 7 home victories have also included BTTS. I'm going to follow that pattern against Torino this weekend. It's 7.4 or it's 7.8 on the Matchbook exchange right now, looking at it. So nice little bump up from the 7.4. I think they're a worthy shout here as a home underdog. You can get them on side with a nice quarter goal start, or you can back the BTTS offering as a single at a nice price too. Torino favoured here. They are only 1 point better off than Frosinone in the table. but 14 points of their 19-point haul have come against teams below Frosinone. So they have had a tricky run of fixtures at top half teams, and they can be stubborn, it must be said. But from a Torino perspective, they will see this as a winnable opportunity, and they're fresh from a really impressive win over Atalanta on Monday, where they scored 3 goals. So I do expect them to be more open, more attacking. They won't just shut up shop as they can do sometimes when they go away as an underdog themselves. They're favoured here, so I think they will get on the score sheets. But I think Frosinone can give them a really good match, and I just think they're a bit undervalued here by the market. So 11 of their 14 games overall have seen both teams scoring. As I say, all 7 of the home fixtures have seen BTTS land as well, include the home win, which has already landed in 5 of the 7 matches. You get a massive 7.8 on Frosinone to win and both teams to score.
7.8 currently best price out there on the Matchbook betting exchange. Best bet time, and again, healthy in profit for the season. We will get to the best bet from last week because it might feed into someone's best bet shortly, but we'll go to Mark first. You filed your insights column this morning, Mark. This is one of 2 selections, so take it away in La Liga. Goals angle again.
Yeah, both teams to score. Villarreal versus Real Sociedad at 1.8 looks really good to me. Villarreal were involved in Europa League action in midweek, a rearranged game against Israeli opposition. Marcelino made plenty of changes. It wasn't really their first 11. They drew out the match 0-0, but I think the cavalry will come back this weekend. I'm expecting a strong home performance from the Yellow Submarine. The signs have been quite good since his return. Watched them beat Osasuna 3-1, very clinical, very efficient in the final third that day, and they really could and should have beaten Sevilla last weekend, a match that ended 1-1. It means that Villarreal have seen BTTS land in 13 of their first 15 La Liga matches this season, which is an 87% hit rate. All 8 of their home matches have seen BTTS. We're getting around 1.8 for a repeat, which just looks a bit too tasty to ignore. I know the bulk of those fixtures have come under previous management, but I think Real Sociedad are just the kind of team to sort of engage in entertainment, and we can expect goals from this team too. 10 of their 15 league matches have seen BTTS, 5 of 7 away have also seen BTTS, and if you combine the 2 teams' record, they've played 30 La Liga matches, they've scored in 27 of those and kept just 6 clean sheets between them. So all the metrics suggest that BTTS can oblige. Real Sociedad have failed to score just once in 7 away from home so far this season. And if you look at their record, I think 6 of their 7 against the bottom half have also seen BTTS land, which is where Villarreal are right now. They won't be by the end of the season under Marcelino, but yeah, they've got a lot to prove before the end of the campaign to sort of reach that stage. But they are trending in the right direction. Expect them to score, but Real Sociedad can always be back to provide plenty of entertainment too. So I thought 1.8 on BTTS was too big to ignore.
Okay, 1.8 Villarreal versus Real Sociedad, and we had Wolves, the team steam last week, Adrian. So if it's not broke, do not fix it. Take it away.
Yeah, I should be Gary O'Neill's agent. I keep bigging him up. I mean, it's as much to oppose Nottingham Forest as it is to praise Wolves this time around. Nottingham Forest, just dreadful, dismal, in defeat at Fulham, 5-0 in midweek. And I've already spoken to a couple of Forest fans I know, and they've never felt this low, I don't think, since they returned to the Premier League. And it does feel as if Steve Cooper might lose his job. He'd probably end up at Crystal Palace. He'll be absolutely fine. I don't think he should lose his job, but it feels like the end might be close. They've lost 4 on the trot. They've lost 5 of their last 6. It's really Forest's away form, full stop, that is the most alarming. I know that they won at Chelsea earlier on this season, but they've lost 19 of 27 away games since returning to the Premier League. They've won twice. 2 of 27 they've won. They don't score very many goals on the road. They do concede plenty, and that last performance against Fulham sort of lacked heart. It was pretty alarming. They've actually conceded 11 now in their last 3 away games. So poor from them. They've lost Arani, who's a real big player for them. I just think Wolves you'll never get a better chance at 3 points here. If their attitude is right, if they play the way that we know that Wolves can, they'll score goals. They've got 2 of the most informed forwards in the division in Cunha and Hwang. Plenty of other good players there as well. And I fully expect them to win the game. And yeah, I was relatively surprised to see, given how bad Forest are away from home, given how much of a stinking performance that was at Fulham, I was surprised to see Fulham on the nose, Wolves on the nose, at an absolutely backable price of 1.92.
Okay,
I'm not
192
sure.
for Wolves.
I'm not sure how real or genuine it was. I don't know if you saw the photo doing the rounds on Twitter after Wednesday night. Someone apparently found Nottingham Forest's owner, Marinakis's official kind of lanyard from the Fulham match, basically discarded in a garden outside of Craven Cottage. But the guy found it like 10 minutes before the final whistle, which kind of suggested that he had made a very early and angry exit from Craven Cottage after watching that. So you'd expect him to be on the phone to replacements right now. So yeah, again, not sure how genuine it is, but there was a photo of it and it looked pretty real.
Yeah, well, it could be a new manager by the time this match kicks off, I guess. But I don't know whether that would go down that well with the players, because I think Cooper is very well liked. And yeah, I don't know.
And the fans as well, Adrian. The fans gave
love
him a
him.
great
He's a
reaction at the
legend.
end. Yeah,
he would always be a Nottingham Forest legend for the way that he saved them. Not only saved them from relegation from the Championship, but took them into the Premier League. You know, that's how bad they were when he took over. By the way, one other stat I should add is that since the start of last season, no team has conceded more goals away from home than Nottingham Forest. Just the 62 goals conceded in that time.
Geez, you only need a couple for Wolves to get the job done. But yeah, interesting footage of the fans booing the players as they came over to them at the end of the game against Fulham, but also clapping Steve Cooper off. So look, interesting. Maybe he does hang on if they did see that footage. But my thanks to Mark and Adrian. Myself, Mark, and Miguel will be back for Champions League action on Monday before Mark and Adrian return for our Thursday show. It's the busy period leading up to Christmas, but we're enjoying it. If you are having a bet on the Matchbook Betting Exchange over the weekend, please do so responsibly. We will chat to you on Monday. Bye-bye.